his students to go and discover what was the best path, and that was going to be the one midah that was going to make the big difference that a person should cling to. So yesterday we did an ayin tova, a good eye. And today we have Rabbi Yehoshua Omer. Rabbi Yehoshua said a chover tov, a good friend. Rabbi Yosei Omer shochen tov. Rabbi Yosei said a good neighbor. And I think we'll stop there for today. So we have, they're not the same. A good friend and a good neighbor are not the same. A good friend is one person mostly, or specific, and a neighbor is the people in your environment, people around you. And you could have many neighbors, especially you certainly have at least two, one on each side of you in your house. So we'll see a couple of different ways of understanding that. So with regard to the chover tov, a good friend, so one angle, really, there's two ways to look at towards the friend or from the friend. So Tiferes Yisrael understands it that if you have the person who's your friend, that person is going to be able to do things for you in the sense that if you have a good friend, that person can tell you about things that you don't do right. He can tell you about your shortcomings, and if they do, if you really have a good friend, then you're able to take it, right? You're able to, if somebody tells you that you're doing things wrong, it depends where it's coming from. If it comes from someone who is not close to you, then you are more likely to be offended. But if it comes from someone who is very close to you, you're usually going to hear it in a different way, and you're going to be able to understand that the person is expressing it out of love and care for you. And therefore, you won't be embarrassed. You're not going to get angry because you know that person wants what's best for you. And he also points out that similarly, the Tiferes Yisrael is the one who said that the ideas that were expressed by each of the sages was connected to the character trait that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had told about them, and that was special about them, the praise he gave. And in the case of Rabbi Yehoshua, it was that praise is his mother, the one who gave birth to him, and his mother also is the same idea that his mother only wanted what was best for him, and she was able to direct him. Another approach Rabbi Lau brings down is he quotes a couple of other commentaries, the Meiri, Rabbeinu Bechaya, that a good friend is a positive role model, and therefore a good friend is going to influence you for the better. And again, if you're not going to behave in front of your friend, you're going to feel a little bit bad because, after all, this is someone who you respect, and you want to be able to conduct yourself in a manner that is appropriate with people that you respect. The other way to look at this is not so much from the other person, what they're bringing to the table, but it's what are you bringing to the table? That you should be a good friend, not just that you should have a good friend, but you should be a good friend. And a person, actually, I mean, technically it's both. You should have a good friend and be a good friend. But he looks at it as this character trait that we're striving for is that working on how to be a good friend is going to say, I have to do things. I have to behave in a certain manner. I have to have good character traits. I have to have a positive attitude. I have to have a healthy personality. I have to I have to do things for other people. Let's go learn humility, be someone who is able to give good advice, wise counsel, be someone who's trustworthy, someone who's patient, right? All of these are character traits that are necessary for you to be a good friend to someone else. So if you're really going to be a good friend for someone else, you're going to make yourself a better person. And that's the goal of being a good friend, is to improve also yourself as well as the other person. And Rabbi Hoshua, again, he was a person who, but the fact that we said praised is the one who gave birth to him, again, it shows that people loved him. People thought he was a great person because not just that he was smart and wise and a great sage, but also in how he conducted himself in terms of how he treated everyone. Another interesting approach, which is brought down by the Midrash Shmuel, is that it means a good spouse, that a good friend is your spouse that we know. I mean, ideally, your spouse is your best friend, but the person choosing a good friend is also more important that you have a good spouse, because that person is the one who's going to keep you on the straight and narrow. The second part is about a good neighbor, right? The good neighbor is someone who is living around you, and that is a different type of choice, and also could be multiple. Rashi points out that having good neighbors is better than a chaver tov, because a neighbor is always there, right? And your neighbor is living next door to you all day, all the time that they're coming in and out. And again, maybe nowadays people are away a little more, but certainly in communities where people are staying where they are, then people are going to be in and out all the time of their houses, and you're going to see them all the time and interact. And if you have a person who's a good neighbor, you will learn good things from that person who you see all the time, as opposed to a good friend, which is certainly a close relationship, but it's not necessarily someone you see as often. The Rabbeinu Yonah also talks about the idea of looking for a place to live that has good neighbors. This is something, some of these we've spoken about in other Mishnah. But when you choose where do you live, it's important to make sure that you live in an area where the other people are going to be not just good neighbors, in fact, that they're nice, but also going to be people who are going to be positive role models for you and your family. You also taking the flip side, which is to be good to your neighbors, just like it was being a good friend that you make yourself into a good friend. So also you make yourself into a good neighbor. And he has an interesting point. He says, if you're a good friend to a bunch of people, so whole people, neighbors, you have multiple neighbors good neighbor. With a friend is if you work on being a good friend to one person, then you develop your character traits and you will be good to more people. But when it comes to neighbors, he says he picks the numbers 5 or 8 for some reason, and he says if you're going to be a very good neighbor with 5 or 8 people, then it'll end becoming that you're going to come to love everyone. Like if you do this to a number of people, then I think the idea being that if you train yourself to care about multiple people, then that multiple people will become even more. That'll be even more people that you will really care about. You become to care about everybody because you've trained yourself to be a caring person, not just for a limited 1 or 2 people. But 5 or 8 people is already a larger group, and therefore you will care about more people. And also, again, it'll come back to you because people will say, "Wow, you have good midos. You're a good person." Tiferes Yisrael also points out, when you're good neighbors, you help each other, and sometimes even at your own expense, whether it be a monetary expense or your time and etc. And when you are doing that, when you are helping others at your own expense, says that brings the both of them to what he calls a midah chasidus, which means going beyond, right? Because when you're spending money on someone else, when you're giving up something for someone else, you're going beyond the letter of the law. I don't remember if we said this in this class or in a different class, but the concept of, we said it in this class, right? That's idea of chasidus is really to go beyond, right? So that when you are going to be helping out other people to some degree at your own expense, then you're going beyond that develops that midah chasidus. Another thing Rabbi Lau points out is that it affects your whole family. It's not just you. He also quotes a pasuk in Mishlei, a close neighbor is better than a distant brother, right? That if you have relatives, but they don't live near you, then okay, so that you have that automatic connection, but the person who's next to you and is a close friend, that's the one you're interacting with all the time. That relationship is going to bear more fruit and be more effective. And again, a good neighbor goes beyond the letter of the law. And finally, to close with something with Irving Bunim points out that the statement of being a good neighbor was from Rabbi Yosei, right? And that's why this idea of midas chasidus, because he was the one who was called the chassid, Rabbi Yossi HaChassid, and he says both, be a good neighbor, choose a good neighbor. And he said an interesting idea. The Chafetz Chaim quotes, a person who is righteous, you're gonna do the right thing. So if you have scruples, you're gonna make sure you only do the right thing. But if the other person is not a good person and that person has the power, you're going to lose because whenever if you have a difference with someone else who is not honest and they are in a strong position and you want to be scrupulous and you want to do the right thing, you're going to lose. So if you have bad neighbors, so what will happen is either they're going to take advantage of you and you're going to lose out that way, or you're going to become like them, which is also problematic. So don't be next to those type of people. If you want to be scrupulous, you want to do the right thing, make sure you interact with other people who are doing the right thing. Because if you're going to be interacting consistently with people who are doing the wrong thing and people who are trying to take advantage, then you're going to ultimately lose out either financially, etc., or you're going to change your ways and become like them, which is probably even worse.